Hi everybody, welcome back to another video at the Happy Project. And we're hanging out here at Paper Street Cafe. You can actually check out their Instagram too. I don't know if you can tell with this beautiful lighting, but it's by Fomex, so we really appreciate that. And today we have a special guest. This is Maya.
Okay, hi, my name is Maya Lee. I'm half Kazakh, half Korean from Kazakhstan. Всем привет, ребята, меня зовут Майя Ли, я наполовину кореянка, наполовину казашка из Казахстана. Сәлеметсіз, мен Қазақстаннан келдім, менің атым Майя Ли, мен кәріс және қазақпын.
I feel like Kazakh language is almost softer.
I think so, yeah, maybe a little bit softer than Russian, because like Russian is tough for sure.
Yeah.
And then they say like Kazakh and Korean, they're from the same, originally from the same language family. So for Korean people, especially, it would be easier to learn Kazakh than Russian.
So Russian is your first language. What about Kazakh?
I know it sounds a little bit like complicated because my mom is Kazakh and like naturally I supposed to be like exposed more to Kazakh, but since we have like a kind of complicated history from the Soviet Union times, and like in Kazakhstan we speak both languages, and like in my family, my dad and my mom, they both speak Russian to each other.
So which parent is Korean and which parent is Kazakh?
My dad is Korean ethnically and my mom is Kazakh.
Okay, so you said ethnically, does that mean, was he born and raised in Kazakhstan?
Exactly. He was born in like typical Kazakh city and was raised and got his like education and everything, met my mom. Yeah, so like yeah, he was born and he has never been in to Korea, like ever, yeah.
Oh, what about his parents? Because your dad is 100% ethnically Korean, so I'm assuming his parents, your grandparents, also ethnically Korean.
Actually, were born in Kazakhstan and they met in Kazakhstan, but like their like parents, they from Korea originally, yes.
Okay, wow, so it goes back quite a few generations.
Yes, so I think I'm kind of the fourth generation of Korean descendants, but I don't know why, but like according to the documents, I'm the third.
Yeah, I know in Kazakhstan they have a lot of different ethnic groups living all together, but even if you're born in Kazakhstan, even if your citizenship is Kazakhstan, you might not call yourself as Kazakh person.
Yeah, we call it like Kazakhstani, like citizen of Kazakhstan, but still you kind of own your own like ethnicity. And since in Kazakhstan we have more than 130 different nationalities living together, yeah, like basically it's kind of okay to be represented by your own like even if it is minority. Yeah.
What do you introduce yourself as? Like in Kazakhstan, let's say, not in Korea, we'll get to that. But in Kazakhstan, how do you introduce yourself to people if they ask you, oh, where are you from, right? What's your background? What do you say?
Yeah, I usually ask them, what do you think who I am? And they say like, you're probably Korean, right? Because you look Korean. But then, do you have something like mixed in your like ethnicity? I say, yeah, I'm half Kazakh. But like usually people just say you're Korean. You look like 100% Korean. Okay, yeah, why not?
Do you think that about yourself too? When you look at yourself, you think, oh yeah, I look Korean. Do you think that?
Yeah, like more or less I look like Korean, but I still have like my bone cheekbones and like some like features of like a Mongoloid kind of face.
So do you feel, let's say, which culture do you feel closer to?
Okay, like inside me, I feel much more like Kazakh, but like outside, probably Korean. So when I was like growing up, looking back at my like childhood, I was always like constantly asking myself, who am I? Like, am I Korean or am I Kazakh? Because like basically I was brought up like Kazakh because like my mom, I don't know, like because of my mom, right? And then my dad, he never ever like tried to introduce like special traditions or like words in Korean to me, which is sad, but what should we do? Like it was like his Soviet Union education and like brought up. So I was like inside me, I was full of this like Kazakh culture, but then I was curious all the time what it's like to be Korean and like what's like to be Korean in Korea, not like in Kazakhstan. So yeah.
Yeah. Did your dad speak to you guys in Korean at home? Does he speak Korean?
No.
No Korean?
I mean, he can speak a little bit of Korean, but it's not 한국말, it's 고려말, which is the language much more similar to North Korean kind of Korean language, but still it's different because like he says it's Korean language kind of a dialect, but then yeah, he kind of understand like Korean language when I speak to him, but then he says like it's much more like artificial.
Did you ever hear, well, actually first, your great-grandparents, do you know if they originally immigrated from South Korea or North Korea?
This is kind of interesting question, right? Like people all the time ask me, are you from North or South Korea, which is like really essential to them. But I'd say when my grandparents were living in Korea, it was just Korea. Like it was before the war, Korean War, and then my dad, he says like we originally from like we have this kind of poi, which is like I don't know like how it is called in Hangul, but he says like we originally from either Osan or Asan city. So I think I have to like maybe find out more. As I remember, my dad was telling, yes, they did speak, but then I don't have my memories. So yeah. Because of this deportation, like in Stalin, like in Soviet Union times, they were deported violently from this like Far East to Central Asia region.
So you're really like half Korean, half Kazakh, because it's a little different in my case because my mom is from South Korea, right? So like literally Korean Kazakh. There's no separation between North and South. So did that change the way you think or thought about Korea before you came to Korea? Did you know much about Korea before visiting here?
I'd say no. I'd say it was only because of these Korean dramas and like K-pop, mostly. Shame on you, right? But yeah, like what should I do? I didn't really had like much experience like or connection with Korea back then, and yeah, I was curious. I was like always curious. I was trying to find out what it's like to be in Korea and what's like Korean culture. And then when I came to Korea first, it was kind of really like a dream to me.
Like a dream?
Yeah, like a dream. Because I came in 2015. It was my first ever time coming to Korea. It was because of this like youth camp for Asian leaders. We were traveling around Korea, like to Jeju-do, like some other cities in Korea. They were trying to introduce us to Korean culture, and it was perfect. It was like really awesome.
So that was your first experience?
Yeah, so I was like, wow, this is like really a dream. I want to live here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You came to Korea on a scholarship, right? And you said it was from the Overseas Korean Foundation Fellowship? Okay, and so how did you get connected with them? How did you hear about them, and how did they help you?
Right, actually when I was in Kazakhstan, just as like living, studying, working, like living my life, I was trying to learn Korean. After my first trip to Korea, I was trying to learn Korean. And then my 선생님, once she called me when I was like having like lunch break at work. She called me and asked me, I remember you were like willing to study in Korea, like master's degree. Yes. I said, yeah, sure. And like we have this kind of a scholarship program, you should apply. And then yeah, I found out about this whole thing, Overseas Korean Foundation Fellowship, and they kind of have different types of scholarships for like both bachelor, master's, and PhD degrees, and then you get like the whole funding covering your tuition fee, your 생활비, which is like your monthly scholarship stipend, and then your 6 months Korean language courses, yeah, and round trip ticket.
So you're studying here now on this scholarship?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, and that's only for Korean or Korean descendant?
Yes, exactly. Koreans, Korean descendants, you have to prove your...
Okay, so you have to be able to prove this. Because I was wondering like if this would work for adoptees. Have you heard anything about that?
Actually never, but I guess they would have a chance because yeah, since they're Koreans, they have the like papers, I guess.
Yeah, if you're able to maybe prove that somehow. For you growing up in Kazakhstan, did you grow up mostly around other Koreans or mostly in Kazakh community? And also, how did you feel being half Korean, growing up in this kind of community?
Yeah, this is like really nice question to me because, you know, growing up, I actually didn't have many Korean friends. I think maybe one person or or none at all, and only Kazakh or like Russian friends. And that's why, because I also wasn't exposed to Korean culture like at home.
Did you eat Korean food or anything like that?
Yeah, we did. Like my mom, she actually can cook like Korean food, but it's different, you know. It's Korean food of like Korean people living in Central Asia. It's kind of more adapted to like local market, grocery market, yeah. And we also have this like funny food which is called 당근차. which is like
당근차?
당근차, which is kind of like Korean salad, but it's not like real Korean.
It's a little different.
Yeah, but like Kazakh people, they think of it as a true genuine Korean food, which is funny. But like it's kind of a signature.
Did you think that also? Like, oh, this is real Korean food. And then when you came to Korea, did you feel differently about that?
To that time, back to that day, I already knew like Korean food is different in Korea. But yeah, when I was growing up, no, of course, I was thinking, yeah, this is like Korean food and we're eating it at home. And like my friends, Kazakh friends, they were envy me, I think, because they said, wow, you have these like Korean foods at home, like every time you want it. Like Kazakh people, they kind of curious about Korea. And since we have like a big community of Koreans living in Kazakhstan, people kind of really respect them and like them even because of their workaholics. I don't know if I'm right or not, but I think it's kind of a gene.
Gene DNA?
yeah, we have it in our DNA. Because like looking at Korean people from all around the world, they have this common feature, like working hard.
So just so you said you didn't have Korean friends.
Yeah, back then I didn't have like many of Korean friends or even none. I think yeah. So I was really kind of feeling myself as Kazakh, but then sometimes since people were kind of reacting to me as Korean, not my friends, but like especially people from outside, they were looking at me and they were thinking of me as Korean, and I was not, in fact, and I was like, probably I have to go to Korea. I have to find out what it's like. Yeah. And the funny thing is like I'm the only member from my family who is interested in Korea like that much. And my parents, they're kind of okay too. They're like, even my dad, he is not really interested in visiting Korea. I don't know why. I've actually invited them like thousands of times, but they were like no. But they're elder now. I mean, like they're not that young, and maybe for them it would be like real cultural shock.
Do you think it's some kind of mindset like the Soviet Union countries? Like we took you out of Korea. This is your new home, your new country. Like, do you think partly because of that history, people grow up still keeping part of Korean culture, but not really Korean?
Yeah, I think this is the case. I mean, it's already like 50 years past, and yeah, I think their mindset changed like totally, and now they're more like something else.
Yeah.
They still have this like Korean identity, of course, but then it's so much transformed now.
It's very interesting. So when you came to Korea, what were you expecting? What were you hoping for?
As I already told you, like my first time was like real dream fairy tale. It was so nice, awesome. And I was thinking, could it like really continue to me, like be the same all the time? But it's not, of course. It became just a reality. It became just a normal life of like a student in Korea. And also because I was struggling with my Korean back then, it wasn't that easy at first, but now I think it's kind of really okay. I really kind of got used to life in Korea, and now I really feel myself as I'll say like I really feel myself as half Korean and half Kazakh. But I realized like really I'm the whole person now, and having like two different types of culture just really makes me maybe stronger, maybe more, I don't know, successful, I'd say. Yeah.
Do you ever wish that you were, well, I mean, was there ever a point in your life where you were thinking, I wish I was full Kazakh, or I wish I was full Korean? Did you ever have that feeling?
Yeah, sometimes I'd say, yeah, to be honest, yeah, from time to time I was thinking, when I was in Kazakhstan, I would think about being just Kazakh, and here just being Korean, because it's easier, right? It's easier to be just growing up with this kind of culture, with other people understanding you 100%. And yeah, but still, I think, yeah, it's more interesting for me to live. Yeah, and I really appreciate other people who are halfies, who have like maybe similar or maybe other kind of difficulties. You know, like my first major is biotech. That's why maybe it was mentioning this kind of gene thing. And then looking back at this like biotechnology past, I know that we have this kind of thing when you have like different types of genes, different types of not similar to each other, like sets of different genes. It really like naturally makes you more stronger or smarter or like even beautiful.
Like these, you're talking about a mixture of very different types of genes. You know, I'm actually glad that you bring that up, because I definitely know many halfies, it's typically younger halfies, either very young or like much older generation, who grew up with the mindset of I am less. I'm not as good as people who are full-blooded. I'm not as good as full Korean or full white or full black. You know, because I'm mixed, it makes me less. So it's kind of interesting to hear you bring it from the scientific point of view and saying like, well, it can make you stronger actually, you know, which is encouraging, I think.
I really feel sorry because of that kind of mindset still existing for healthy people. So I like to encourage them to be really proud of themselves, because it's really hard. I can understand it like with my whole heart and soul. It's hard sometimes, like you're really marginalized and you're really like standing on this like border in between two different cultures. And yeah, to be really strong enough, to be brave enough to overcome that kind of like inner difficulties, yeah, it's really worth doing it, I think. Yeah, and probably I don't really know how it turns out in future, but I would like to have like my husband also from different culture, or maybe half.
So this is my second to last question for you. How do you personally find that balance between being half? What? Because you were saying earlier, like people should find that balance. Like you're on this line, this border, and you're just of two ethnic groups, of two countries, of two cultures. For yourself personally, how do you balance that out?
I think personally, I just try to appreciate both cultures, and then. But the funny thing is, my close friends, they say, "You're Kazakh. You just look Korean." Whenever I act like, behave like myself, I don't know. So I try to keep this balance, but I think sometimes half of me just like stronger than other. I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, okay, well then the last thing I want to ask you, for all other halfies, and it can be halfies all around the world, I don't know who's watching this, I hope people all around the world, of all ages, all ethnic, what would you like to say?
It's actually hard, I think, to mention one thing, but I would like really to wish all the halfies around the world to be yourself, and really to cherish this kind of inner like combination of two different cultures, or maybe more cultures even, and yeah, to always appreciate them and always try to be yourself. Yeah, that's only what I can say. Be happy.
Yeah, okay, Maya, thank you so much. Спасибо большое. I really appreciate it. Yay. Thank you.
Пожалуйста, спасибо большое за то, что пригласила, Becky.
Well, thanks you guys for watching, and I hope that you're going to subscribe to the Happy Project, because we're going to continue having more of these interviews. We also have the Instagram, which is at the Happy Project, same name. And here you can see more of the photos and some more of the stories and kind of what's going on a more daily basis behind the scenes. And I hope you get involved. If you ever have questions, or you yourself are happy, or you want to do an interview, I really hope that you'll just message us, DM on Instagram, you can send us a comment, everything, we'll always check it. And yes, this has been the Happy Project.